There is one thing that we can count on continuing to go up and up and up, and that is this number right here, the U.S. national debt. We have a lot of other numbers that are continuing to go up as well too, but there's one number that has fallen dramatically, and this is here, $120 silver. It was $5,000 at one time. We're going to explain what's going on, hopefully, in this video as we explore. Before we get here, let's first take a look and see what we have going with some of these other numbers that we know we can count on to continue to go up. That is U.S. federal tax revenue. Yes, they're taxing us, and they're, as well as taxing us through inflation, they are actually taxing us big time as well too. I know, I pay quarterly. It's insane. A lot of money of my money goes to the federal government, as well as state revenues as well too. That number is climbing as well. We have also U.S. federal deficit spending, which is climbing dramatically. In fact, when we take a look at the debt to GDP ratio, it is now at record highs we've not seen since World War II. In fact, at one point it was 129%. It's pulled back a little bit here. Nonetheless, we are paying a lot. There's a lot of money being spent and a lot of debt being accumulated. And look here, the debt per citizen is $94,190. The debt per taxpayer is $246,866. Man, it's insane what's going on there. So, but one number that's gone down dramatically is the dollar to silver ratio. And again, notice I'm not saying that this means that silver is $120 per ounce. That is how it's listed there. This means there's $120 bills printed for every ounce of silver that is produced in the world per year. There's a year-over-year increase in the M2 money supply. How much money have they printed more over of money they printed per year over divided by the yearly world production of silver? So it's about an increase, the year-over-year increase, and that is the key here as we try to understand the debt clock here. Because for the first time ever, this metal here, we're seeing it, increase slightly. I think for 2023, it's projected to increase by 1%. Of course, the demand for it's going to be much greater, but that's another story. But let's take a look at the money supply. This is an unprecedented amount of increase in the M2 money supply that has happened. Now, this is something that is, again, especially since the pandemic, it has been exploding in the amount of currency that's been printed. Hence why we have inflation. And it would be worse if all that money stayed in the United States. But now let's take a look at what's happened in the last year. As you can see, as it's gone up, it is starting to come back down over the last year. Less money supply. Now, what does this mean? I mean, they are printing dollar bills, currency, and minting coins. We've seen coins with the date 2022 on them. In fact, some of the Series 2017 notes that are circulating are brand spanking new, made this year. It's just that we've not had a Treasury Secretary until now, or a Treasury Secretary. And so those signatures will be made on the notes, and they've started producing those just in 2022, late 2022. Nonetheless, those will be coming. But in spite of that, there's a lot of dollars that are digitized as well. And this is why the currency supply and the money supply is going down. A lot of money is digital. It's in digital form. They're circulating in the banks and the like. And so that is what has led to that. And I think that means that the increase is pulling back from the last year. And so this is why I believe these numbers are down dramatically because of that. It means they're still printing, and they're still printing a lot, but it's come down. You can see that the dollar to gold ratio has fell dramatically as well. And so when we think about where we are at now, with the Federal Reserve. And look at these numbers here below. This is from 1913. It was $2.66 per ounce then for silver, and $28.70 per ounce for gold back then. Much closer to the actual value, by the way, of gold and silver at those times. We take a look at the commodities report here from USGS, which is looking at the year-over-year production. We can see there was actually a decrease from 2020 to 2021. And I'd be very curious to see what 2022 numbers look like. It could go back in the other direction, meaning that some people might say we may have reached yet another peak silver point like we did in 2017, because in 18 and 19 they fell a little bit. With demand growing with only 1% increase, we're likely to see a 1,030 probably for 2022. If they've increased for that year, but we'll find out and see when those numbers are released. If you take a look at that year-over-year increase, how is that measured? Dividing those numbers that are mined per year, or taking the full number that is mined per year, or the difference between that year. I'm not sure exactly how you calculate that. We have to study this language carefully, because it's the year-over-year increase in the U.S. M2 money supply. That means that they're just looking at the increase, not the total, divided by the yearly world production of silver in ounces. So that means that would lead me to believe that is the total in silver ounces, not the difference. So the way you do that math, I think, will get us to these numbers, but I just haven't really looked at it that closely, and I think you would have to do a little bit more digging to find out. But nonetheless, there it is. And it is at a number that I have never seen before. I have never seen the silver to dollar ratio this low as long as I've been tracking this. I think when I first started this, it was this series, I believe it was like 840 or something like that. I have to take a look at the playlist again. I don't have it up right now, but you can look back and see what it was. I think I referenced it in my last video. But this is the lowest it has ever been. And it is remarkable to see in amazement, but we are at a point where we've never been in the United States before, and which is why I'm thinking that it is a differential in printing money, and why it's gone down so much and not the total. Because if we look back here, even for the past 5 years, you can see it's dramatically more as a total here than it was here. And I've been doing this debt clock thing for a number of years, even before this. I forget where I started it, but nonetheless, which is why I'm thinking it's a differential, because there's no way that we were back to where we were back at the time before when I started this, which may have been about 5 or 6 years ago. So it must be the differential there. Regardless, we are seeing something new. With that in mind, when we look at this over the past year, it's gone down from where it was. And for all of these years, we've had quantitative easing, 4 rounds of it, and we're here sort of to infinity because they're printing money, but just less of it. This is the first time they've actually tapered back, and there's less supply of dollars in the economy. And so that is, I think, one of the reasons why we're seeing it drop so dramatically low. Now, obviously, mining data can certainly have an effect on that, and I've not been able to find anything for 2022 yet. I guess they're speculating, and there's some estimation going on there with regards to the silver mining, world production of silver mining year over year, or total production per year. But there it is. Now let's take a look at something else about what we've got happening here. When we take a look at the U.S. M2 money supply, these are numbers we should look at very closely here. U.S. M2 money supply. It is going up. You can see there, it's going up. But why is that other graph showing it going down? Because they are printing money. They're still printing money. They're just printing less of it now. But they're also pulling back in digitized dollars, I believe, as well, too. Especially money that's not circulated. It's coming back into the banking system, and that's going back into the Federal Reserve. And by the way, on a physical note, we know that dollar bills that wear out after a certain amount of time, or coins that are damaged or what have you, they get destroyed. Did they get replaced with new ones? Well, for the dollar bills, those were what would be considered star notes to some degree, but the others of it, not necessarily. And so some of that stuff is going back, and now they want to have less of that in the system to stave off inflation. That's the whole goal of what the Federal Reserve tries to do: stable employment and to stave off inflation. So there it is. Now, U.S. Treasury dollars, now we can see this one is staying stagnant. It's not moving here. That's USA Treasury dollars. But this says here, it gives an explanation of what that is. Issuing $4.3 billion directly from the U.S. Treasury, bypassing the Federal Reserve Bank. These debt-free interest notes were known as silver certificates. So that's the amount of those. Now, look at that. It did tick. There's a number that ticked there. This is interesting. Money issued by the Treasury. This is wealth-based, debt-free, non-interest-bearing money issued by the U.S. Treasury. Are these with the bonds? I don't know. Very interesting. That's what they have now. Look at that, number's going down, actually. It's going down here. We can see it moving. So that's stuff that just maybe who knows what that means. But it's interesting. Nonetheless, when there was a little bit more of way to be able to constrain themselves, right now the Federal Reserve is trying to do that with this tapering to constrain themselves. But we also have Congress that has passed a couple of massive spending bills, which means that they're going to have to probably reverse course, which is why some people think they're going to pivot this year, which means they will print more money to meet the obligations from legislation. And of course, we have a debt ceiling as well, crisis as well too. So we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, that I think hopefully explains why this number is so low. $120 silver. Pretty amazing. What's the overall lesson, no matter how low this number is, because it's still high compared to the price of silver now, which is around just above $24 an ounce now. It means they can print dollars easily, but they cannot mine silver easily. And they can easily print these dollars, and silver definitely holds its value longer. And value is something that we should look at as opposed to price more often than we do. There you go. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, please share, please stack, and subscribe.